Okay, so I think we'll get started now. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for joining us this morning. Hopefully you've been really enjoying the festival this week and you've been onto some really interesting talks and heard some really interesting people speak. Hopefully I can continue that for you as well. But before I get started, I just wanted to make sure I thank our partners for the event. So Invest in Bath, Brevio and Set Squared Bath. Obviously, without those guys, the festival wouldn't have been possible. So big shout out and thank you to them. I did mention a minute ago, but if you do want to get involved online, the hashtag is BDF2020 and make sure you at Bath Digital. And also a big thank you to the guys at Bath Digital Festival for asking me to speak today and share some thoughts with you guys. And also for the amazing festival they put on, given the current circumstances as well. So big round of applause to those guys. So just to kind of get started, and for people who I've never met before, my name's Luke. Nice to meet you. I am the business development manager at a digital agency based in Cardiff called Spin Dogs. We are a full service digital agency. So we do everything right from kind of branding and design through to web build and web design, bespoke web design, through to kind of online and digital marketing. So a big part of my role is working with new clients and existing clients on their websites and their website briefs and their website kind of scoping documents for what they want for their website in the future. And there's kind of a lot of things that come out of these sessions that I have with clients that you can kind of draw a line through all of them. And there's lots of things that come up time after time. So hopefully today I'm going to share with you 8 tips or 8 questions that you need to be asking yourself when thinking about a new website or reviewing your existing website to see if it's working as effectively as it possibly could for you. So just to kind of set things into perspective, I mentioned that I'm kind of speaking with clients on a daily basis. So this slide is really just to illustrate the breadth of different clients we work with. We work in public sector, private sector, and charities, and the same types of things crop up a lot because, as you can imagine, delivering a first-class online experience, there are certain boxes that need to be ticked, whether you're in education, a membership organization, a commerce website, whatever you are, there is a certain level that people expect from your website these days. So obviously, as well as working with existing clients, I work a lot with new clients. So I will be introduced to their business, learn a lot about what they're trying to do, what their goals and aims for their new website are, and then work on a proposal for them. And what I tend to see quite a lot, especially with some of our newer clients, is that we can be quite focused on the big picture and can be quite bogged down with the idea of kind of what's next, what's new, what are other people doing, how do we kind of be the biggest, the loudest, the flashiest and stand out from our competitors, which is completely understandable. But sometimes what is missed there is getting the foundations right and getting a core stable functionality to your website and kind of ticking all of the basics before you think about the bigger stuff. So that's really kind of my main focus for today and why I wanted to share tips with you on kind of getting the basics right before you think about the bigger picture. So this may be where I potentially split the room and lose half the audience, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I just wanted to share with you, obviously, today my top 8 tips. And anyone that grew up with MySpace will know that choosing your top 8 was always quite a thing to deliberate over. So I've tried to keep it to 8 tips. Obviously, it's not an exhaustive list. And if I could, I would talk to you guys for hours about, tips of getting your website correct. But today I am just going to focus on my top 8. So to get started, the first thing we need to think about is, can people actually find us? So can people find your website? I'm mainly thinking from search engines. So assuming that they don't potentially know what your URL is, how are they getting to your website? How can they find you? So obviously there's a lot of work that goes into search engines and appearing in organic search rankings. And I won't kind of go into that because obviously that could be a whole talk in itself about SEO. But it's going to be really important that you as a business identify and know what your keywords are and what people are searching for, and then what you want to rank for essentially. These may change over time as well. So it's really important to check in on a regular basis. So even if it's annually, your business is going to grow and change over time. Your markets may potentially change. Your focus as a business of who your audiences are and who your targets are may change. So make sure that that's reflected on your website. So for example, if you are always targeting a particular sector and you're after a very corporate client, and your keywords on your website, so in terms of your meta descriptions, page titles, the content that you have on it is all focused around that corporate audience, it's going to be likely that the types of search results that you're ranking for are going to be related to those searches. So an action from this would be to have an SEO audit carried out if you're not sure and you're kind of not on top of all of your keywords and meta descriptions and page titles and all of that kind of stuff. There are lots of agencies who will actually offer a free SEO audit for you. And there are also tools that you can use yourself as well. So SEO Quake is a particular favorite of mine. It's really, really useful, and you can just kind of do a quick check on all of the pages of your site just to kind of make sure that you're ticking the boxes in terms of telling search engines like Google and Bing what your site is actually all about, what you're offering, what your content is, so they can serve you relevant traffic, essentially. The second question that we need to be asking ourselves is, once people have actually found us, is the content on our site relevant and useful? There can be a tendency, especially with sites that have been live for, let's say, 5 years or more, and sometimes in public sector, for sites to become quite bloated over time with content. So when the site would have been initially designed and built, all of the, a lot of time and attention would have gone into it to kind of think about the user experience, the navigation, making it easy for people to find content. But over time, new content is added, pages get added, and the site becomes quite confusing. If you're looking at it every single day, it might be easy for you to navigate, but it's really, really important to ask people to kind of try it out for you and see if the content on the site is still relevant and useful for them when they're navigating it. Also, one thing I kind of wanted to point out here is, just because something makes sense to you, it may not always translate and make sense to your audience. So when you are writing content for your website, whether it's for a blog, whether it's for case studies, news, whatever it may be, just kind of think, does this make sense to our target audiences? If you have a specialism, so for example, if you are an IT provider, likelihood is that your customers are coming to you for that specialism. They may know keywords are kind of related to what they're looking for, but they may not have as deep a technical knowledge as you do. So it's really important to kind of try to explain it in as clear a way as possible that your audiences are going to understand the content that you're serving to them. Also, on that point, I mentioned about blogs and case studies. That's going to be really, really important for your organic search rankings. So if you have a blog or a news section on your website, or even case studies, adding regular content, typically I would say minimally on at least kind of once a month, shows Google and other search engines that you are keeping your site updated with relevant content. And it's going to help overall improve your organic search rankings. And also, on a more kind of user experience level, it shows the person visiting your website that your content is up to date, and it shows that you're an active company. I think there's nothing worse than sometimes I'll look at a website and I know that it's an active company because they're talking to me about their website, how they improve it. And I look on the blog section and maybe something hasn't been updated since September last year. It just looks like you're quite inactive, and it doesn't set the right tone or the right first impression to someone that's looking at your website. And also, blogs, case studies, all of this kind of great content, it gives you an opportunity to present yourselves as thought leaders. If you're trying to stand out from your competitors, or whatever industry you're in, if you're trying to provide relevant content, use your voice and use that platform to say something and add value and provide useful, relevant content to people. The third thing that we need to always kind of consider, especially when looking at our websites, is brand consistency. Most organizations will have brand guidelines, however short or detailed. It may be something as short as, we have a logo, we have some brand colors. And then there'll be other companies who are the complete other end of the spectrum, and they have tone of voice guidelines. They have really, really set guidelines about how they talk to their audiences. But the main thing from my perspective is ensuring brand consistency. So if you are thinking about a new website, just think about the impact on the rest of your business. So if you are designing a new website that looks kind of, all singing or dancing and takes your brand in a different direction, it's really important to consider how that then follows through to other things like your printed materials. If you were, for example, I don't know, a cleaning company and you have vans that are on the road, think about how that brand transfers across then, and it should all kind of work in tandem with each other. The other point that I thought was key for us to look at in terms of brand, and I just mentioned a second ago, tone of voice. This is something that a lot of businesses will say, we know who we are, we know what we stand for, and you may have your core values, or you may have kind of principles and the way that you act and operate as a business. But the really important thing is to kind of consider, does everyone in our business know and understand what that means? Do they understand how we speak to our clients? Do they understand the types of content that we want to serve to our clients? So brand consistency is key. And also, I think one thing I noticed was that at the start of the pandemic earlier in the year, tone of voice was something with a number of quite large businesses that seemed to shift and change a little bit for a couple of weeks. I think it then got back on track. But whilst there was a big period of uncertainty, it felt like a lot of businesses lost their tone of voice and became very, very corporate, because obviously it's a very serious matter. But it's just kind of worth considering, kind of staying true to your tone of voice, staying true to who you are, what you represent, and making sure that comes across every area of your business. Back to the website. The fourth question is it easy to navigate? So I kind of touched on this a little bit when we were talking about content. But the main thing I'm kind of thinking here is it easy to guide people through your website so they can find the content that they need, but also that they're carrying out the actions that you want them to carry out? So for example, if your main goal for your website is that you want to get people filling out a contact form and getting them to get in contact with you and make contact, don't make that too difficult. So don't hide that contact form, 2 levels down in the site that makes it really difficult for them to get to. If that's the main thing, there's no reason why you can't have your header with an introduction of who you are, and then almost a quick button that if people do know who you are, take them straight to the sign up form or the contact form or whatever it is. And then when they're on that form, make sure you're just asking them for the content that's actually relevant for you. If you are trying to drive conversions, you're trying to drive people to have a conversation with you about your services, your products, whatever it may be, make sure that you're making that easy. Don't ask them for too much, because people just, that's something that may, increase bounce rates, and people are going to say, I don't want to kind of input that much content, and you might lose a conversion there. Similarly, if you have an e-commerce website, for example, make it easy for people to navigate and find the products that they're looking for. So make sure that you have kind of advanced filtering, for example, or the ability to search for products, jump straight to it, and then make the checkout process easy and make it easy for me to add to my basket and then pay very, very quickly. You don't want to do the hard work of getting people to your site and raising awareness of your brand and who you are, and then at the point where you need them to do something, confuse them with a site that's not easy to navigate. On this point as well, most websites by 2020 should be mobile responsive. I do see some that still aren't, which now just instantly dates your website. If you have a website that isn't mobile responsive, it's going to instantly show its age. I think obviously every single year, mobile and tablet usage statistics on websites that you can access through things like Google Analytics are going up and up and up. And it's just a given now that more people are accessing websites via mobile and tablet. So make sure that your phone is make sure your website is mobile responsive, because you don't want someone, again, potentially having a different or a worse user experience on your website just because of the device that they're accessing it from. A final point on just checking if your site is easy to navigate. If you're not sure and you're a bit blindsided by it because you work with your website day in, day out, and you think it's easy to navigate, but you're not sure, you can also use some kind of review tools. So there are heat mapping tools like Mouseflow is quite a good one to use. I know there are some free tools as well that can show you. It's obviously all anonymous, so in terms of GDPR and being compliant with capturing data, there's no personally identifiable data, but it just shows you that certain areas of your site, where are people struggling, where are they clicking, where are they not clicking, what content is being missed. And sometimes tools like that can be really, really good to improving the overall user journey and user experience of your website if you're not sure where some of the issues are. Like I said, there are tools as well. So Google Analytics is free to use and should be on most websites. It's fantastic, and you can kind of really drill down into detail of which pages are most successful, which are having the most engagement. But it's kind of worth considering that just because some pages aren't having high engagement, it might not be because of the content on the page. It may be because people aren't even getting there. So it all plays a part, and it's just kind of worth considering, worth kind of piecing all of the bits of the puzzle together. The fifth thing that we need to kind of check and ask ourselves is, on the website, do we have strong calls to action? So this, for me, always goes back to what is the goal of your website. I talked earlier on, or just a minute ago, about kind of driving people through the site, and strong calls to action will do this. So think about, if you have a button, whether it's, inquire now, shop our latest collection, whatever it may be, think about the content that you're putting in that button and think about what you're asking people to do. Sometimes I will look at websites and there will be lots of buttons that just say read more, read more, read more, read more. It kind of becomes white noise, and it's a missed opportunity to make it clear to people. And it links into kind of leading people through the site in a clear way. It's a really, really easy way to signpost people where to go and what action to take next. Something that we always consider with our websites when we're designing new websites for our clients is, when you get to the end of a page, so for example, a blog page, are you giving other calls to action? So if I've scrolled to the bottom of the page, I don't want to just see the footer. I want to see the next step. So whether it's you've reviewed our services, click this button to get in contact with us, whatever the call to action is, or it may be relevant case studies, it may be something else, but relevant content and strong calls to action are going to be really, really useful to kind of building up trust, that you know what you're talking about, that someone wants to buy into you, and essentially to kind of convert and help you meet your goals of your website. The sixth thing we need to ask ourselves is about high quality imagery. So this is something that comes up time and time again. And sometimes I will see, and it's not just sites that we build, there are other sites I see go live as well, and everything looks great, and then you check in about a year later, and via the content management system, some images have been changed, things have been dropped out, and then suddenly the site doesn't quite look cohesive and it doesn't look as slick as it used to. So every modern site should have high quality imagery. And in saying that, I'm not saying that every single person needs to employ a photographer that goes out and, you spend thousands on photo shoots. If you do, fantastic. And I think that's great, because it can get across a real sense of who you are and what you do as a business. And obviously rich media like video content can do that as well. But if you don't have high budgets and you don't have that available to you, there are really good free sites where you can get good stock imagery. So I think stock imagery sometimes has a bit of a connotation of cheesy 90s photos of people shaking hands over a desk and smiling. You can still find those images and you can use them if it represents you and who you are, but stock imagery has become way more than that now, and things like Shutterstock are fantastic of finding really, really good imagery. That even if you decide you just want that for a little bit, it can kind of set the style of your site and what you're trying to represent. And then in time, when you do have budget, you can direct a photographer to use this kind of style when shooting photos for you. If you don't have the budget, even for something like Shutterstock, Unsplash is a free image sourcing site as well. But the most important thing I will say in terms of high quality imagery is be consistent. So even if you don't go down the route of photography and you look at illustrations or a more typographic route, whatever it may be, make sure that you're consistent throughout the site. Sometimes you'll look on a website and it will have a photograph header with people in it, and then you scroll down and there's an animated illustration, and then you scroll down again and it's typographic. And if it works together, great, but a lot of the time it can lead to quite like a disjointed feel of your site. So if you want your site to feel cohesive, make sure that the imagery that you use across the website kind of speaks to each other and is the same. You don't have to use the same images everywhere, and I'd actually advise against that, but at least kind of set a style. So when you are thinking about reviewing your site, think about what types of images represent you, and then try and pull that through. So the types of images you're using on your homepage should be complementary of the same images that you're using in your case studies, same images, same quality of imagery that you're using if you are a commerce business and you're selling products. Obviously, that's going to be extremely important that you have high quality imagery. So make sure that it all pulls through, be consistent, and take advantage of free tools if you don't have budgets yourself to produce high quality photography. I'm not going to do a deep dive on social media, and I wanted to more kind of bring it up as a way of directing traffic to your website. So obviously, most website, I would say most website projects I speak about with clients nowadays, if not all, the conversation of social media comes up. So the question that I always ask is, are you using your social platforms to drive and direct traffic to your website? Social platforms are fantastic for engaging with your audiences, building brand awareness, reaching new audiences and reaching new customers, giving across a sense of who you are. If you are a commerce business, showing your products. If you are a B2B business, showing your services. If you're a third sector business, showing what you're doing with funding, whatever it may be, social is a really good way to do this. But I would always advise to use it as a way to drive people back to your website. The main reason being analytics and tracking and the ability to kind of review on a website is going to be far better than it is on social media. And also, I think if someone has engaged with you on social media and they've made it through to your website, that's kind of it's the first step really in the process. And I always try to advise that people avoid sending people back the other way. So I think this is becoming less of an issue now, but lots of new website projects that I would speak to potential clients about, they'd have a homepage, and one of the first things they would want to do is to put a Twitter feed and a Facebook feed and an Instagram feed, and it kind of takes up a big square of the homepage already. The risk that you're running there is directing people off of your website, off of what you're actually asking them to do and the content that you're asking them to engage with, the user journey that you're trying to guide them through, and it becomes a distraction, and they go back to social media. Latest tweet comes through, they're on someone else's page. So it's harder to keep people engaged with you if you're just relying on social media. It's a really powerful tool, but use it to direct people to your website rather than back the other way. And then the final thing that we kind of need to ask ourselves is, I've mentioned it a couple of times, but are we reviewing performance? It's, like I said, there's a lot of effort and a lot of time that goes into designing and building a new website. So presumably, whether you're a marketing manager, whether you're a business owner, an IT manager, you're likely to go through a procurement process where you find the right digital agency for you if you don't have developers in-house. You're likely to go through a really long process, choose the right person to work with. You're likely to go through a lengthy design process of getting everything right. It's really, really important that once that site goes live, you are continuing to review if it's meeting its objectives or not, and if it's meeting its goals. That's the only way to determine whether your site is successful. Is it meeting the goals that we intended it to? If not, what do we do about it? What do we change? It may be content. It may be that someone's getting to a certain area of your website and not finding what they need, so you may need to add different functionality. But things like Google Analytics are fantastic for seeing visitor numbers, popular pages, bounce rates, but you can also drill down into demographics. So you can kind of help build up a picture of who your audiences are on your website and who is engaging with your content just by a free channel like Google Analytics. So don't overlook that. And if you have it installed on your website, but you're not sure how to use it, there are lots of businesses like ours that run free sessions where they can talk you through your analytics and help you make sense of it and help you make the most out of it. I would advise that minimally you're reviewing it on a quarterly basis, if not monthly. And then depending on the speed of your business and the amount of traffic and visitors that you're getting, maybe even weekly. But if you stay abreast of what's happening on your site and how people are engaging with it, you can react accordingly rather than, checking in once every 6 months or something and then realizing that all of this, time and effort that you've been putting into content is not being reviewed not being viewed or not being engaged with. It's really important to kind of keep on top of that. In addition to Google Analytics, there are other tools like Google Search Console that can tell you what terms people have been searching for to actually get to your site. So that's kind of another level as well. But again, that's really, really useful to build up. How are people finding us? What are the terms that they're putting in that are getting them to our website? And for example, that can be a really positive thing because it can help you build up a bank of keywords, as I mentioned before. But on the flip side, you can also see, are people coming to our site for, the wrong keywords that are actually nothing to do with us landing? And then the reason why they're not converting or they're not going on to further content is because they've landed on the site and they're actually in the wrong place. So it's kind of, it goes both ways, and it's really, really useful for both of those reasons. But the last kind of thing I wanted to finish on with this point is that every site should evolve over time. It shouldn't be a static thing that you put a lot of time and you put a lot of effort into, and then it just sits there and, you might update it once every 6 months or something. It's really important that you make that site continue working for you over time, and you continue to review it. So hopefully, if we ask ourselves all of those 8 questions, we're getting the foundations right. We're getting the basics right before we think about the bigger picture, and then your website will be optimized for conversion. It's really important that you kind of set out that baseline first before you kind of start thinking about the bigger things, whatever you do, whatever type of business you are. Obviously, at this moment in time, it's a really, really important time to review how well your website works. Obviously, in the past couple of months, if you haven't done that already, I'm sure you will start getting feedback from your teams or the people that you work with you. So your customers and audiences will probably start to have fed back already what works about your site, what doesn't work, what's difficult. So make sure, as well as everything that we've been saying today, make sure you're kind of reviewing that, listening to what people are saying about your website, and then making changes, because at the moment it doesn't feel like lockdowns are going anywhere, and it doesn't feel like there's an imminent return to normal life. So make sure that your website is working best for you, because it's going to be your main point of entry with most of your audiences, if it's not already. The final note I just wanted to kind of leave everyone on was this idea of kind of being a digital expert. I think there's a reason why festivals like Bath Digital Festival exist, and it's because everyone has their own kind of specialism, and digital isn't something that any one person can be a full expert in and know everything about every area of digital. There are specialisms, whether it's SEO, whether it's website design, whether it's website build, whether it's marketing, whatever it is. Don't worry too much about being an expert and knowing everything, because things change on a daily basis, and it's really difficult to know everything when it comes to digital. If you are a marketing manager in-house, or a comms manager, or even the MD or the owner, there can often be a pressure to kind of keep on top of everything and know the latest about every single thing when it comes to digital. But just remember that you don't need to know everything. Get the foundations right first, and then you can grow from there. I just wanted to leave on this final point, and it was something that illustrated that point to me recently. So I won't get into the main conversation around the hoo-ha with this ad. But one thing that really stuck with me was the response that I saw on social media. So I couldn't find the exact Instagram post, but I know it was quite popular on Instagram where people pointed out just how many roles fit within this idea of cyber or digital, and kind of how short-sighted it is to just kind of say that someone's career could be in cyber. There are so many specialisms, so many niches, that no one person is going to be an expert. No one person is going to kind of know everything. And there's a reason why I work for an agency that has 60 people in it, because everyone kind of plays their part. And there is a lot to know when it comes to digital. But as I say, get the foundations right, cut yourself some slack. You're not going to know everything, but start with the basics, and that should serve you well. So that's everything from me. I think we are going to have some time now for questions, if anyone has any questions, and I will happily answer. Okay. I can't see any questions. All I can see is nice mustache. So thank you very much. Okay. Well, we do have some coming through. Oh, thank you very much. So yeah, if anyone did have any further questions, I'm more than happy. My email is lcardy, that's LCARDY, at spindogs.com. More than happy for you to shoot me an email, or find me on LinkedIn, and we can kind of have conversations if you did have specific questions. Oh, I think we do have some more coming through, actually, sorry. So I think the one question that we have from Emily is, if you are running a blog and looking to monetize it, where is the best place to start? Simple answer, but I'm actually going to kind of hold my hands up. I'm not actually sure. We don't tend to work with businesses who monetize their blogs. So I'm not sure, actually. Presumably, this is kind of from a place that you would have, you know, I'm not sure kind of what the blog would actually be about. So I'm wondering if it's about kind of products and things like that, and you're looking to promote other people's products and then kind of monetize that. Sorry, it's a bit strange having a Q&A and then talking back to written questions. But yeah, hopefully everyone found today informative. And like I say, if you do kind of have any more questions, please do let me know. I think most of the questions seem to be around the presentation being available. So yes, it will. All the slides will be available, and I'll be happy to share those with you. Oh, here we go. Thinking about businesses like restaurants and pubs and cafes during the pandemic, a lot of them have only updated their opening info, etc., in Google or Facebook, not on their webpage. It's detective work figuring out who is open. How would you advise these businesses? Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I found this myself where I walked past a restaurant that said it was open. We were kind of heading there, but it was closed. So when you search for your brand name or your company name in Google, you will often see something on the right-hand side, if it's set up correctly, called Google My Business listings. And that's typically where people will put their opening hours and more information about kind of who they are as a business. So it's really important to keep those updated. But as someone just said, sorry, I think it was Ruth, yeah, it's definitely worth keeping the content on your website updated, because people will often bypass that. I tend to look at the Google My Business listings, but people will click through to your page, and if it says that you're open, or if you've still got opening hours on there, but you're not open, or vice versa, if it says that you're closed because of the pandemic, but you've reopened again, it's really important to keep that content updated. So I would definitely advise, obviously things change on a daily basis, so sometimes your website, you know, might be one of your, you know, secondary thoughts after kind of obviously keeping your business running and making all of the changes that you need to. But it's really, really important to do that and to make sure that messages that you are conveying that are really important are on your website as well. I think a lot of businesses will do it on social media. So I saw most businesses, whether it was restaurants, bars, that kind of thing, would put something out on social media. But for example, people may not be on all social media channels, or they may not think to check there. They may go to your website as the direct source of that information. So yeah, it's a really good point. Make sure it's updated across all channels, and that you're not just relying on putting one message out on Facebook, because half of your audience may not be on Facebook. So yeah, it's a really good point. The last question we have at the moment is, do you have any advice on what platforms to work with, i.e. WordPress, Squarespace? Yes, this is a really interesting point, actually. We as a business work with 3 different content management systems. So we work with WordPress, we work with Umbraco, and we work with Kentaco. So over time, we've grown those just from working with WordPress. And have kind of added additional ones, and each one of them kind of has its own merits. In terms. Oh, sorry, I think I just stopped sharing the screen. Each one has its own merits in terms of what it can offer you as the content editor using it. So, for example, something like WordPress is great for smaller businesses and people who need an easy to use content management system. So you might be a B2B business, for example, and the main areas of your website are a services page, a case studies page, a blog page, and a contact page. Something like WordPress is going to work really, really well for you. You can use kind of WordPress themes. That's not something that we tend to do as an organization. So typically we would design each page bespoke to your brand guidelines or whatever requirements you have, and then we would use WordPress as the CMS so that our clients can update the content on their new website. Some bigger organizations, so we work a lot with membership organizations who have thousands of people accessing their website daily, and they have a lot of content on there and a lot of really heavy functionality. Something like Umbraco or Kentaco is really great for that, because it's just much easier to manage lots of different pages. And as you kind of go up the ladder of different more robust CMS platforms, there's more functionality inbuilt that you can use out of the box. But a really great place to start is WordPress, or even if you don't have the budgets for a WordPress bespoke website. Matt mentioned Squarespace. Squarespace is great if you're a really small business, you're just starting out, you might be a startup, you don't even have £1,000 for a website. So you kind of think, right, we need something that looks professional, something that gets across a sense of who we are and ticks all of those bullet points that I mentioned throughout my talk. So yeah, Squarespace is great. You basically choose an off-the-shelf theme that kind of represents you, and you can tailor it to your content. Obviously, there is a limitation to that. And when you work with an agency like us on a bespoke designed website, you can be very tailored about how the page is laid out, the colors you're using, the imagery, the fonts, the text, all of that. And you can kind of have full control over how it looks. When you are using something like Squarespace, it will have a little bit of a shelf life in terms of adding bespoke functionality. So we work with a number of businesses who want bespoke functionality on their website. So it may be a pricing calculator, or it may be a login area that when our customers have logged in, the website recognizes that they are a tradesperson, and they see trade prices on all of our products. So where you get into the realm of bespoke functionality and you need very specific things to happen on your website, and it's not just a brochure site, that's probably where you should start looking at a bespoke designed and built website. But yeah, definitely, if you are a small startup or a smaller business, something like Squarespace is a really good place to start. So hopefully I haven't missed anyone's questions, but thank you so much for joining today. Hopefully there weren't too many technical issues, and hopefully everyone heard me okay. But as I say, thank you again to the guys at Bath Digital Festival, and also thank you to all of the partners, and thank you to all of you for joining. And yeah, it's been really, really nice talking to you all, and hopefully I will talk to you in the future. Have a good rest of the festival, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the talks, and have a good weekend. Thank you, everyone. Take care.